A writer went viral posting about her unpublished book, gained thousands of pre-orders, said it was going to be edited by the editor who published The Hunger Games, and when it was released, the book was so poorly written that it was a flop. It ended up with 1.8 stars on Goodreads. Now the book has been pulled for more editing and a re-release at a higher price point, and readers are wondering why they should bother. Today we're discussing Audra Winter and her book, Age of Scorpius. Hi, my name is Rachel. Today we are gonna talk about it. So I feel like in order to review this book, I need to give you context about what happened, and I feel like some of the conversation around this is not making I can't point to a particular video on TikTok that I feel like is really wrapping up my issues with this, so I'm gonna do it myself. That way you understand where I'm coming from when I review this book. I got a text from a friend a couple weeks ago now saying, hey, are you gonna cover this Age of Scorpius thing? And that was the first time I'd heard about the Age of Scorpius and its author Audra Winters, a 22-year-old who says that she's been working on this book since she was 12.
How do you write like you're running out of time? Write day and night like you're running out of time.
Which is surprising that that was the first time I'd heard of it, because apparently this had been blowing up on the internet for months without an excerpt of the book being posted. It just blew up because of the author posting about the idea of the book and the aesthetics of the book, similar to what happened with Alex Astor and Lightlark. Very similar, because a similar thing happened where quality of the book was poor. I'd go as far to say that the quality of Age of Scorpius is much worse than the quality of Lightlark. Audra Winters managed to, according to her, sell 6,500 pre-orders of the book in 2 months. She says that even before the book came out, pre-orders alone allowed her to turn into a full-time author and entrepreneur. Unfortunately, the book is, and I'm putting this mildly and kindly, extremely poorly written. People are saying this was an incredibly effective marketing campaign for a flop of a book. Audra says that the feedback on her book was fine until an author started talking about her book on TikTok. And then one person, one video, as she puts it, changed everything.
Unfortunately, came across a video of another author talking about me. When I saw that video, I closed out the app and I went to my studio space and I said, up until this point, I had very positive reader reception. I was staying aware of what people were saying, and it was way more positive than negative. But when I saw this video and I saw the things that were being said, I knew one person, one video can impact someone.
I disagree, because again, I read the book. So now authors are looking at this and saying, dang, I wish I could find a marketing strategy this good. Please keep in mind that marketing strategies might work initially, but if you don't have a quality product to begin with, you're going to burn consumer bridges immediately. Something that might help you market your book is excerpts and character art. I'm going to talk about a specific example of this in a little bit, but those two things can sell books unbelievably effectively. And you can create your own website to showcase these things with the help of today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace can help you make any type of website that you want to help you stand out in the vast ocean that is the internet and effectively market your book. Squarespace is an all-in-one website building platform that makes it so easy for you to have a professional, beautiful looking website of your own for you to create or sell whatever it is that you do, or just talk to your audience. Whether you're an author trying to market your books, you're a crochet nerd crocheting some book-related merch that you want to sell, or you're an editor looking to promote your services. Editors are super needed if you didn't know. Or maybe you're a book cover artist looking to showcase your work and get new clients. Anything you do, Squarespace can help you showcase that and market it, whether it's your services, your goods, or your website can just be a place for you to talk to your audience. My website is readswithrachel.com. It has all the places that you can find me, info about my book club, join my book club Discord from there. I have a contact form, I have FAQs. Squarespace made this so easy for me to set up because I don't know anything about website creation, but Squarespace is great because they just have templates that you use to customize according to your preferences, even if that includes selling your merchandise. And no worries if you have no experience with this, me neither. Squarespace has e-commerce tools and a custom merch service. You just utilize it without having to worry about things like inventory and shipping. So whatever your online presence is, or your business is, or maybe both, Squarespace can help you organize it, market it to your audience, and help you find your place on the internet. For a free trial, go to squarespace.com. And when you're ready to launch, you can use the QR code on the screen or go to squarespace.com/readswithrachel for a 10% 10% off your first website or domain. That's squarespace.com/readswithrachel. The link is down below. And thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. All right, let's dive in. But first, here's your disclaimer. All of this is readily available info on the internet. I don't recommend going and talking to the people that we're going to talk about today. What is the point? Everybody's talking about it anyway. What can you possibly say to the people involved in this that has not already been said to them and still not changed their mind up to this point? Don't bother. The most important disclaimer I want to give for this video is that this video is not for Audra Winters. It is not for anyone on Audra Winters' team. It is not for friends of Audra Winters or her family. This is not for any of those people. If you feel very strongly, if you love this book, I would suggest you not be here. Let's set us both up for success here and you exit. Yeah, all of this is simply my opinions and feedback from readily available information found on the internet. The other thing that I will say is I will reference what is inside the book. I have picked out some excerpts and I'm going to talk about specific examples of why this is poorly written, but I will not be reviewing the book in this video. I'm going to have to separate them because my review ended up being way longer than I anticipated just from the sheer amount of line edits that I want to talk about that did not happen, that should have happened. Misused words, repetition that doesn't make sense and is not a stylistic choice, but simply a result of not trimming down your sentences. And I haven't even really started writing down the notes about my feedback on plot or character because I'm so busy looking at the sentences and going, that word is simply incorrect. I mean, just over and over and over. Like if I were to redline this, it would just be a stack of red. And I'm not an editor, I'm not a professional, and a professional would do a much better job at looking at this than I would. But all that to say, my review is going to be separate. It is going to include a lot of me referencing line editing that clearly did not happen, I should say. But that's going to be separate because it's going to be so long, but we're going to talk about specific examples that I pulled when I talk about the quality or lack of in this book. So let me explain to you what happened here. First of all, Audra Winters is a pen name. I'm going to leave out her real name, but she had created a following, a smaller following than she has now on a different account where she was talking about needing to get a therapy dog because of PTSD, and she was raising money to get the therapy dog, an incredibly expensive therapy dog. I believe that the total cost that she was looking to crowdsource was $20,000, $19,000. That account is now gone. We are not going to dox people, put their real names in the comments. We're just going to leave that out of this. But I say this to let you know that she is familiar with crowdfunding. Crowdfunding a book can sometimes go awry. The controversy surrounding Audra Winter and her book Age of Scorpius is an interesting case study in looking at crowdfunding, but also marketing. With modern publishing, its landscape changing to this very high speed, get the product out as quickly as possible, and also it being a lot of aesthetics-based selling. There's a lot of examining we can do using this as a case. Wow. There's a lot of examining we can do using this example in particular. This is a great way for us to look at algorithmic marketing, which is really what's at play here. Without the TikTok algorithm, this never would have even been a thing that was on anybody's radar. The uptick in lack of editing, and also this is another case in not just uptick in lack of editing, but popular trend we're seeing is authors getting very defensive when they get feedback, especially to their debut. But also, we also need to use this to examine some parts of the book community deciding that when criticism happens, we need to soften our blows, pull our punches, if somebody is a debut, as if that should be the determining factor in our reviews. Or if somebody is an adult at the age of 22, apparently we're supposed to be more understanding than if they're an adult at the age of 35, which I'm just not understanding why we're softening our punches. And it also, with the whole crowdfunding thing, comes in the piece of authors creating a online presence and selling that rather than selling like a quality product, which this is not. So it's a really good case study to look at with regards to all of those things. So this received extraordinary commercial success before it was even out because of a very successful pre-launch set of choices. I don't want to call it a strategy because it kind of seems like, to me, it was just sort of stumbled into. That's not derogatory, it's just how it looks to me. Using digital tools and hoping that the algorithm picks you up is a gamble, and in this case it worked very well. I think that the reason I'm a little critical when I look at this is because looking at the people who purchased the book and hearing them say, I thought we were supporting her because she was 22, is a little odd to me. I can't relate to that. I talked earlier about if you want to sell your book and market it, a really good idea is to use the art and excerpts, and I say that because the artist, the 15 artists reference in regards to Audra Winters, which I'm going to come back to, they're making, I mean, this just looks like the Master Sword, but okay. The rest of it, the art is actually quite good in here, but art alone without excerpts, I don't know would sell a book to me. I can give you an example of a book where the author herself creates the art and uses it to display excerpts, like not novel, but graphic novel style. So let me grab the book. Did you guess it was going to be Little Thieves by Margaret Owen? Is it signed? It is, because I met her in person and she's lovely. Little Thieves is both a testament to the fact that, number one, just because it's a young adult book doesn't mean it's badly written. Person who said that, who was referencing this, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And second of all, it's also a testament to you can use art to sell your book, but it's especially effective, at least to me, if you use art in accompaniment with the actual like words of the characters. So Margaret Owen would post excerpts from the book in graphic format with art she created herself, which is also, she created her own book cover. And this was what put Little Thieves on my radar in the first place. And now it's one of my favorite series. And it's because of the particular scenes she was doing. They were funny. The art was good. And I felt like I had a grasp on the characters very quickly. The art that's being used to promote this is not doing that. And hardly ever is the art used in that way, even to like get your attention. It's mostly Audra talking about being an entrepreneur. To me, that would not sell a book. I guess like people who are browsing TikTok are feeling that way, and that's why this was so successful, which is really interesting for me in looking at like what works and what doesn't work to sell a book can vary from person to person. I guess the way that you sell a book to me is just very different. The problem is if you don't have a quality product to back it up, then the reviews after the fact are going to be bad and you're not going to be able to ride that high the next time. Okay, so Age of Scorpius is set in the world of Guardian, Gardian, know you, where an individual's zodiac sign determines their fate, their magic, and their social standing and how they are allowed to live, who they're allowed to be with. And in our main character, Rika's case, it determines, since she is a Scorpio, she has to, well, not have emotions. Zodiac-inspired books are quite popular. Zodiac Academy is somehow incredibly popular, despite also being poorly written. I will say that I think this is worse on a line level, but Zodiac Academy has an absolutely ridiculous premise that I just find stupid. This, I think the premise could be good if we took some time to develop it and develop its characters, which are just, to me, as shallow, if not more shallow, than the ones in Zodiac Academy. So Audra presented this book as a lifelong passion project that she'd been working on for 10 years. She was 12 when she started it, and she's 22 at the time. She'd been developing it for a decade. So this narrative of, you know, I'm just an author trying to make this story that I've been working on for a decade, you know, come to fruition, it resonated with people, and they were willing to purchase just based on that alone. Her audience was emotionally invested in her, not so much invested in the story itself. They were supporting a dream, not just buying a book. This like emotional piece of it was really important to the sales. And I guess the TikTok algorithm picked up on that and started pushing this. Once this is in your feed, it's in your feed. So as soon as I looked up Audra Winters once, I keep getting ads from her account through TikTok over and over and over. TikTok is like, ooh, potential customer. The TikTok account of hers starts to gain a massive following and generate viral interest in the project. This campaign was super effective as a premise made famous by TikTok. So then she announces that she's become a full-time author and entrepreneur just from pre-orders alone, and the book is not even out yet. She sold 6,500 copies without even having had the book be published yet. It is really difficult to sell 6,500 pre-orders. Established authors often don't get that much. Pre-orders are really important to show publishing that you want something, that you care about something, that the author is worth investing in. There was apparently a Kickstarter campaign for Age of Scorpius, but then she canceled that and pivoted to a model where she creates the book, publishes the book, and sells through TikTok itself. She also sold limited editions, which don't look like this. They look a little bit different. They look a lot different. The art is completely different. She says she created an LLC. I've looked into this and I can't find the LLC anywhere. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means I can't find it registered. So she created this LLC and brought on a team of, she says, 15 and now 20 artists. I don't know why this is. I'm struggling still to figure this out. I think it's great to employ artists. I just don't know why a book like this needs 15 to 20 artists working on it. I agree with everybody who says that this would have been better off as a graphic novel. If you're employing 15 to 20 artists, then you have the ability to do that. If you are able to cultivate 6,500 pre-orders, then you are able to, 5,500 pre-orders, then you are able to create a graphic novel. If people are not buying because of the excerpts, they're buying because of you, I would say go for the graphic novel option. But now it's probably too late. I mean, she still could do it, but she's lost a lot of the steam of her audience because of what happened. So she says that she is now a multimedia creative studio with 20 plus illustrators, musicians, animators, and graphic designers from around the world. Cool, but what do you have to show for it? What I think is that this was to legitimize herself, to make herself sound like a legitimate company that was worth your investment, which is also why the whole thing with the editors happened, which I'll come back to. This also encouraged people to further buy the book, not just legitimize her as something worth investing in, but also it's a team of indie creators in a well-resourced and high quality enterprise. We're uplifting this team. And so this further, I think, drove the success of the book, appealing to people who want to support independent artists and who are against generative AI taking from other artists and creating new shitty products that could have been done with, human ingenuity and then having paid those people for it. But the problem is that that parasocial bond is not going to hold up if the book's quality is poor, that pulling on the heartstrings of, wanting to support independent artists from around the world and, support this young person, that's not going to hold up if the book's quality is this bad, and it is. So upon its release, which happened on June 27th, thousands of readers who pre-order it get the book. And so when people start finishing the book and the reviews come in, there's a wave of criticism. There was a stark contrast between the professional image that was created by Audra and her marketing campaign and the actual quality of the product. And this ignited controversy. People kept asking, where's the editor? Now, before we even get into reader reactions, I want to talk about that question. Where's the editor? Audra said, and I'm going to read this to you verbatim, when met with criticism at the beginning of June, before the book came out, at the beginning of June, she says in a comment where it says, imagine if the books all suck, right, about her series, because she promoted this as a series that she was going to write with the first book releasing at the end of June. She said in response to an offhand comment on an ad, I've been developing a perfect introduction to my world for 10 years. Work with the developmental editor who published The Hunger Games, a copy editor with 30 plus years of experience at Big Five publishers, and I know I did something right because most of the folks on my team came into the position with very little knowledge of the story and they all love it. In a follow-up comment, she said, I also spent 3 years at a literary agency with help from a developmental editor, and prior to that had 2 separate freelance editors go over it along with beta readers. That thing has been looked at so carefully. Listen, as a person who paid for this, if I had read that and that had caused me to buy this because she legitimized herself with the work of tons of people, I mean, just an utter ton of people were just referenced in order to legitimize herself, I would have been fucking livid. I would have been livid if that's what sold the book to me. And that is what sold the book to a lot of people. And that is why they are upset that the book is so low quality. Now, I wouldn't call it a scam that she said all this, but I would say that it was misleading. So what was misleading? Let's talk about that. When I say that she said, I've been developing a perfect introduction to my world for 10 years, worked with the developmental editor who published The Hunger Games, what I heard when that was said was she worked with Jennifer Reese, the developmental editor of The Hunger Games. That's what that gives off because it's worded in a particular way where that's what you're going to think. But it's also worded in a very particular way where she has plausible deniability because that's not actually what she's saying. It wasn't Jennifer Reese who edited this book. It was Lisa Edwards. Lisa Edwards did not developmentally edit The Hunger Games. She worked more on the marketing side of The Hunger Games for Scholastic in the UK. So she keeps saying over and over, hired the developmental editor who published The Hunger Games. It's very carefully worded, I think, to make you think that the same developmental editor who developed The Hunger Games, who edited that in a developmental way, is also editing this book, Age of Scorpius. That's not what happened. What happened is Lisa Edwards, who worked in marketing on The Hunger Games, allegedly was brought in some capacity to developmentally edit this book. But I don't know how much feedback Lisa Edwards actually gave on this book and how much of that feedback, if any, was actually taken and implemented into the process. I think Otter knows very well that what she's saying is going to be perceived in a certain way by the audience and it will legitimize her, but what is actually the reality is something different. But because your perception is not her fault because she worded it very specifically, she has plausible deniability. But no, the developmental editor of The Hunger Games did not developmentally edit this book. A developmental editor who worked on marketing piece of The Hunger Games was in part working on this book. I don't know how much. Consumers don't know that. Similarly, consumers don't know that when you say 100% organic, that's different than saying made with organic ingredients. Those two things have different definitions. So when I say something is 100% organic, it means one thing, and when I say when it's made with organic ingredients, it's the other. But a consumer reading that doesn't know that. They think, oh, made with organic ingredients, that must mean that the whole thing is organic. It's not. It doesn't have to be because that has a different definition than 100% organic. Similarly, saying I worked with the developmental editor who published The Hunger Games is different than I worked with the developmental editor who developmentally edited The Hunger Games to developmentally edit my book. Those are two different things, but consumers didn't know that. It also says that there was a copy editor who worked on this in the acknowledgments. However, what is now being said when she was asked about the editing, responding for clarity's sake, just to prevent more rumors. I truly believe it was an error in the last 2 steps of the editing process with copy proofing. Now, once again, I feel like we're using vague wording in order to have plausible deniability. Whose error was it? An error makes it sound like a small thing. It can't be a small thing as somebody who's read the book because every single line, it's like 95% of the lines in here have something wrong with it. A misused word, a preposition where a preposition doesn't go, a repetition that throws off the flow of the book. I mean, it's just like error after error of which there are like many examples. It's not just one thing. My developmental editor and I had a good talk about revisions, she recommended a strong copy edit pass. Okay, did you take the revisions from the developmental editor? How is that possible I don't know how you could developmentally edit this book. Like on a line level, the book is not good. And because the sentences are so fucked up, it's hard to do any character development or have the reader feel like they understand the characters or understand the world. Of course, the developmental editor recommended a copy edit pass because I don't know how you would develop this. The copy edits and proofing happened at the very end of all of this. When I was in a whirlwind of change, trying to keep up with hundreds of bookmark orders, I was so exhausted and tired from starting a business that I couldn't give proofing my all. I don't understand this at all. This comment started with responding for clarity's sake, and all I have is more questions. Again, as somebody who purchased the book. Now, after the fact, but still, I am a consumer of the book, so I want to understand why this product that I paid $20 for is the way that it is. The copy edits and proofing happened at the very end of all this. How is that possible? How is that even possible? Did you or did you not copy edit that? Did you look on a line level? Did you have somebody go through with a red pen, and did you take that feedback and implement it? It happened at the end of all this. Does that mean that the line editor looked at this at the end, and then you, because you were so tired, you didn't give proofing your all? I needed stronger copy edits and more proofing between production and print times. You needed stronger copy edits. Does that mean that you were given ideas for those and then you didn't implement? Or did you do them at the end? And this is an edited book? Unfortunately, I didn't recognize this until after the fact, and it haunts me every day now. Of course it does, because this is a really bad product. This is a really bad product. So I just find this response to be ridiculous and confusing. I'm not sure whether or not the edits even happen. You wrote a long paragraph, and yet I don't even know what happened with this book and why it ended up in such poor quality. So the consensus among the first wave of readers was overwhelmingly negative. The book had a score of 1.71. I thought it was 1.8. 1.71 stars at one point, and the majority of the ratings were 1-star reviews. So some examples that I can give you out of context, because I don't have time to review the book here in full. I've been talking about what the book says, so let me give you some examples. The wolf stared back at me, its abstract hand-carved shape paling from the amount of sun it had been receiving. So the way that this sentence looks, it sounds like it's saying that it's actively degrading. And she's talking about a wolf mask, that it's actively degrading as she looks at it. What it should say is, its color, once likely vibrant, had faded from the sun. Also, sun is also always capitalized in this book, but sunlight isn't, but sun bleached is. I don't understand that. We say, oh my God, in this book a lot, which is a complaint I said about Fourth Wing, because there are multiple gods, so which one are you talking about? Where from my lineage was there a zodiac turner? The answer felt like it should have been close, barely in reach, yet just out of my fingertips. You didn't need to use the word yet, and also in like the context of this, what she's saying is, why do I have this power? Where did that come from in my lineage? The answer feels just out of my reach. Yeah, because you don't know who your biological dad is. That answer is really out of your reach? Verena extended her hand to me, a neglect of a choice I didn't have in the eyes of the stellarium. The word neglect there doesn't make any fucking sense. There is no founded excuse to negate breaking the Scorpio code. The word founded doesn't really make sense there. Like, it's almost the right word, but it's just not quite the right word that we were looking for. And also, if the defense is that this is just how the main character talks, well, too bad, because that's not the main character, that's somebody else. So it's the entire book. It's the narration, it's the main character, it's all the side characters. They all talk very oddly. Okay, a twinge of amusement sparkled in Mom's eyes. A twinge is a pain. How do you have a pain of amusement? I don't understand. Legend said that the Calexis, a mythical sword of immortality, cursed anyone it touched with immortality. The mythical sword of immortality cursed people with immortality. Why did we say immortality twice? My eyes caught to a combination of light magic. Your eyes caught to a combination or caught on a combination? And torches radiated a gold luminance upon the building shops and wanderers of the night, while a few colorful light specks buzzed around from enchantment magic. Enchantment magic? You needed both words? This is like saying ATM machine. The solitude of the eve enhanced the sounds of distant chatter and the quiet hum of enchantment magic. Once again, I would have enjoyed it even more if Chase hadn't been with me. How are you in solitude if Chase is with you? Like this, so you can understand why I'm sitting here wondering what the fuck, especially seeing as Audra herself said, and I quote, I wrote it at 10. I worked to perfect the opening time and time again with different ideas, numerous manuscripts, numerous stories. I did more growth as a writer than you are assuming. I have written for 3+ hours every single day. I was with a literary agency for 3 years. Awarded as a writer. Where? Have the same developmental editor who published The Hunger Games. A copy editor who has 30+ years of experience and an entire team who read and adored my book without knowing what they were getting into. I have my 10,000 hours of mastery at 22. You are exactly what I'm referring to when I mention the toxicity of writing communities. I am not worth any less because of my dedication, and in fact, it's a 6-figure business and a studio extremely early on. It's a bad book with a shit plot that doesn't really kick off ever. It has characters that are flatter than roadkill, but those are way in the back seat of my issues, because the ultimate issue I have is how unreadable this is. This shouldn't take me long to get through. It's not that complicated. It's not The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. Perfect book, which I sat and savored. This is taking me so long because it's such a drag to try to pick apart the sentences and understand what you're trying to say. In the backlash of this, a lot of readers commented on feeling duped and scammed. I don't know that this constitutes a scam, but I can understand how this feels like they were misled. Because sure, I would feel misled too by the particular use of words in order to have plausible deniability, but also legitimize yourself. Yeah, that absolutely feels underhanded. One person said that they felt that they ordered a steak dinner and were given a bag of Cheetos because there was a failure to deliver a professional grade product here. They feel like the readers who bought the book feel like they got a product that was not finished. It felt like a first draft, some said. So then people start talking about, the rights of consumers to have quality products, which, yeah, I agree that this is not a quality product and it does not even meet the standards that we agree upon as book consumers. It does not even meet the bare minimum standard on a line level. People started demanding refunds at one point. I don't think they should get a refund, but I do think that they should get an apology. And I do think that if Audra Winters wrote those lines knowing that they would make people believe that the developmental editor of The Hunger Games was on the team for this and developmentally edited this book, and that's what she used in a defense in a comment, if you used those things to legitimize yourself and to say, this book can't be bad, I worked on it with all these professionals, this is a perfect introduction, only to now come back and say, I was really tired and I didn't edit, you should apologize for that, because you legitimized yourself into getting pre-orders, and now you're admitting that exact thing that commenter was saying that you argued with was true. You didn't edit the book was bad. Despite all of these people that you used to legitimize yourself, the book was in fact bad. So people said, and I agree, that the pacing was wackadoodle, the wording is incredibly awkward, there are numerous instances of repetition just in the first chapter alone. Even the introduction has this line that I don't really understand. We deemed it the guardian land for humanity. Guardian, no you. I don't really understand what we're saying there. That's just the introduction, and then chapter 1 gets bonkers. So if we're saying you created a perfect introduction to your book, the actual introduction is poor. If we're talking about the introduction as in the beginning of your book, also poor. If we're saying this is the introduction to your series, also poor. So this defensive comment that you made in response to somebody, that person deserves an apology because they were right. And everybody who you use to legitimize yourself and defend your work also deserves an apology because their names were thrown under the bus for a product that the consumer was right about. It isn't quality. Somebody mentioned that even the synopsis is not correctly written. Some of the reviews on Storygraph did bring up that the world was interesting, that there was solid, believable characters, which I personally disagree with, but that's going to be subjective. I can make my case, but this person can probably make their case as well. There is political intrigue, which, yeah, but not good in my opinion. And that there's queer rep, which cool, but there's queer rep in this too. So again, if I'm going to look at two books that are both young adult fantasy books with political intrigue and queer characters, these two both fit that bill. And one of them is decidedly better than the other and also contains art made by the author herself, which is honestly really cool. This is just going to turn into me talking about Little Thieves. What's really cool is when you get to, there's like stories within stories that are about the main character. When you get to each one, there's like art of each like tale to like give you an excerpt of what's going to happen within the like dark fairy tale version of the story that's happening to our main character. So there's a bunch of these in here. There's one here. I mean, there's great art in here. So it is possible to make a book where there is art and it's edited and the characters are good and there's queer rep. Like, you can do more than one thing. And no, we don't lower our standards just because the book is a young adult book. That's not how this works at all. Young adults deserve quality written books on a line level, just like middle grade readers do, just like adult readers do. That we don't lessen our quality standards just because a book is written for and about young adults. But even the positive reviews said things like, this could have been tightened up. But yes, the negative reviews did get, they did go viral. The author's response to the initial wave of controversy escalated the situation. People said that she was really, really upset. Some of them said like she argued with me in comments, and she was saying that the audience did not understand the book because she wrote it from a particular perspective of a person with ADHD and autism who's also queer. People claimed she was deleting comments and arguing with reviewers. I will say that reviewers were leaving review feedback in her comment section, which is not appropriate. Don't review authors' books in their comments. Leave reviews where reviews go, on review platforms. Your own platform, Goodreads, Storygraph. Do not go to the author's house and leave the feedback. But I think Audra was probably watching reviews also.
Up until this point, I had very positive reader reception. I was staying aware of what people were saying, and it was way more positive than negative.
She started liking comments in her own comment section that agreed with her. Allegedly, one of them called readers dum-dums, and one of them suggested that anybody who didn't like it just didn't get it, lacked reading comprehension. So then she shifts her defense to something I have seen before, where it's like, if you attack this book, then you are attacking my identity as a fill in the blank. I've seen this when I've reviewed Fourth Wing, actually. Not the author came and told me I was sexist, but either other authors or other readers told me that I didn't like the book just because I was sexist. I was being harder on it because it was written by a woman. That's just not true. I was hard on it because I don't think it's good. Audra used this defense saying that she was getting shat on because she was a woman in the fantasy space, because she was autistic, because she had a queer and ADHD main character. And that's why people failed to understand it, because she wrote it from that perspective. And this was, I think that hardly anybody took that defense and said, oh, you know what, she's right, because it's ridiculous. Readers who identify as neurodivergent and or queer push back against this framing. Just because you are autistic does not make you use the word demeanor wrong multiple times. Just because you have ADHD doesn't mean that you use prepositions where they don't belong. Just because you are a lesbian doesn't mean that you have a repetition issue over and over in this book. Like, that's just not how that works. There are plenty of main characters who are autistic, who have ADHD, who are lesbians, or a combo of 2 or 3 of those, and the books do not look like this. It's just not how that works. I think that our main character has ADHD in this book. Am I remembering that wrong? Well, there's tons of books where the main character is autistic or has ADHD. One that I can think of with an autistic main character is this book, or Unseelie. If a character and a plot are incomprehensible to the majority of your readers, it is not because they don't understand you or your characters or neurodivergence or queerness. Many of your readers are of those same groups. It is a failure of craft. It is not because of prejudice. This was an incredibly disingenuous argument to make, trying to deflect valid criticism about the very poor writing and make it into a whataboutism. Yeah, I wrote a bad book, but what about you? You don't like me because I'm queer, which is ridiculous. Especially like as a queer person, I'm looking at this and I'm like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? So then after a few days, she comes back and has changed her approach.
I am somebody who is neurodivergent. And I was afraid of being interpreted wrong because of this, because I do know that I write in a different voice, in a different style, in a different perspective. I had intended this book to be read that way, but it did not land at all in the way that I was expecting. That does not mean I am removing that identity or that representation from my text. I am going to do it better so it matches what my audience's expectations are. And I want to have a book that is enjoyable to read and understand. I was scared when I released this, and I got defensive. And that was wrong. On that note, I will not be engaging with my comments anymore. I want to be able to respect the space of my readers and them discussing amongst themselves. And I want them to feel safe doing that. And if my page is where they feel safe doing that, it's welcome. And I will take a step back. For those of you that bought the hardcover already, we are offering a 50% discount on a $30 book. The price is going up a little bit because we're improving the quality of the book as a whole, not just the writing. We're adding more art and more involvement from a whole creative team. And the features of the book, different cover, different interior, different end pages, sprayed edges. We're going all out. We're going all out. But if you're somebody who has already purchased the hardcover and you do want to give us another chance, or you do want to read the story again, it's available for $15 there. We also do have it on the TikTok shop. If you're somebody new to my page who has found me and the chaos that this has been, if you want to support us. I am recruiting a copy editor and a proofreader from my audience. So people that are watching my videos, because I am receiving a lot of wonderful feedback. And I do have a lot of authors and writers and editors who follow me, and there are people who want to help, and I'm seeing that and I'm recognizing that. So I want to be able to find someone from my readers and from the people who are supporting me to be on my team.
She keeps talking about her team. It switches over to like the team and us on the team. She posts a video where she apologizes for her initial reaction, says that she got defensive, says that, you know, she shouldn't have argued with readers, is going to stay out of reader spaces, is going to stay out of her own comments. I don't think she should have to stay out of her own comment section. I think that people should stay out of her comment section if they're going to leave reviews in her comment section, like unprompted, just randomly showing up on a video and being like, your book is the worst, I hated it because this, and this. I think that's shitty and you shouldn't do that to any author. I think if she asks for feedback and then you give it, okay, but unless she opens that door, don't go through it on her account. You can leave whatever you want to leave on your own platform or on Goodreads. Author spaces are not your space. Go to all the other reader spaces and leave your feedback there. So then she says that she's going to do better. And her idea is to come out with a second revised edition of the book to be published in December, which would be expanded on and updated to incorporate reader suggestions. And she says that she's going to hire an editor from her own audience. And that is a huge red flag. You had an editor. You said you had an editor. Where is the feedback that editor gave you, and why didn't you implement it? Why don't you implement it now? I don't understand the timeline of events for this book's editing process. And I should, because the editors were used to legitimize the product. We should not be taking on somebody from the audience to fix it. Hire a professional. You know that professionals do good work, which is why you use them to legitimize yourself beforehand. So hire one. And the promise of the new revised edition also came with an uptick in price. She said that the new edition would be $30 for new buyers. I bought this for $20, and I think the TikTok special edition was $25, if I remember correctly. Those who purchased a first edition will be able to get the new, actually edited, assumedly, edition for $15. So you pay $5 more for a product you already bought that should have already been edited. So the early supporters who actually gave a shit about Audra and her craft and her world and her success are now being asked to pay again for what they thought they were already getting in the first place, which was a professionally edited book. This is not a discount. This is something they already, it should have already been the product that they bought. They shouldn't have to spend $15 more to get something that they already bought. She also talked about doing more art, which people did not ask for more art. They asked for an edited product. I don't know how you took on 15 artists, now 20 artists, and created a production company and said you edited the book only to come back now and say you didn't edit the book. And now you're going to make people pay again for the edited version, which you said was going to be the first version. This has damaged her relationship with the reader community in a way I don't think she can come back from, though I do think that some of the steps she was taking, staying out of reader spaces, not getting defensive when criticism happens, I thought those were good. A lot of people had already written her off at this point. But then she comes back with another video, ignoring the fact that people are like, don't audition editors from your audience. Your book should have been industry standard in the first place. You shouldn't make people pay $15 for we shouldn't even be talking about that. We shouldn't even be talking about that. We should be talking about the fact you need to answer basic questions about why this product isn't good. We don't need to be talking about the next wave. We need to be talking about why this product was not good. That's what I think people deserved, more than a $5 discount, or sorry, $15 discount if you look at it as, you know, the book actually being worth $30, which I overpaid for this by $19. It was $20, if you recall. And people saying like, you're asking us to pay at a higher price point just for more art, but what we asked for was editing, the quality editing that should have been the standard. People were saying, I think that 1 year minimum, I don't think you should come back in December with a new version. I think that 1 year minimum is the time you should take to revise the book. I think you're doing a lot of good things here, but I fear putting a 4-month deadline on it will cause the edits to be rushed. Take at least a year, update readers through the process, let readers give you feedback themselves, then reread everything twice more and do more revisions. Somebody said, and I think this is important to note, as someone she argued with, people are getting fed up because she's been incredibly hostile and defensive when people tried to gently offer feedback. No, I don't think that feedback should have been left in her comments. She weaponized her and her FMC being an autistic ADHD lesbian and basically accused people of that being the reason they didn't like it. She also submitted to the Guinness World Records because she believes she broke a record for pre-orders on an indie debut. I tried to kindly let her know it's impossible to know that because indie sales are private record, and all she did was argue with me because if any indie sold more than her, they would have talked about it. She's incredibly arrogant and argumentative to people who are genuinely trying to help her, so many of us don't feel bad for anymore. Yes, she's young, but that's not an excuse to act the way she has. Let's talk about that real quick. I feel very frustrated with the parts of the community, especially authors who know better, who are saying, well, she's young, well, she's young. There are some of you who have talked about, well, my debut was treated this badly. I've read your debut. Your debut is, even if I have some critiques of it, I'm thinking of like a very specific example here. Your book didn't look like this. Please take it from a reader who read this. I understand that you sympathize with having a tough time with a debut. Her being 22 means she is an adult. She is not a baby. We don't need to infantilize this woman. This was a product that she knew how to make better and chose not to. She legitimized herself with editors and then did not use them. We do not need to infantilize this woman. She knew better. She just didn't do it because she didn't think it mattered. That's my opinion. So saying she's 22, that's an adult. That's a whole adult. That is a full adult. That is not a 12-year-old. That is a person who had years and years in adulthood to fix these problems and knew that editing was important, which is why she used other people to legitimize herself. I'm just going to keep saying it. You cannot infantilize a woman who actively showed in her own comments she knows better. And also, a book being an author's first book is not an excuse for a book to be bad, let alone this bad. There is no excuse. And I think that if they were to read it, they would feel differently about it. I think that it's inappropriate to baby this woman, this grown woman. I mean, Jesus, like I was talking to Natalie about this and I'm like, when you were 22, you had kids. She goes, yeah, and a mortgage. I was like, I was living in another country. Like I was married. Like 22 is still an adult. It's a young adult, but it's an adult. It's I've already graduated college adult. It is old enough to understand how to start a business, which she did, and know better. There is no excuse. I don't know why we're trying to look for loopholes and excuses for another person. The fact is the consumers deserved better. They thought they were getting something because of the way she worded her marketing. They did not get that, and they do deserve an apology. She does not deserve to be babied. And I can't help but wonder why we are choosing this particular person to infantilize. We would not treat certain other people this way. I think that this infantilization is a privilege that she is getting that we would not award to other authors. So she comes back again with another video, which is actually where this whole editing comment that I brought up comes from, which is really interesting because it is in opposition to what she says in the video. What she says in the video, you know what, this actually really pisses me off. What she says in this 16-minute long video is that she had gotten great feedback, and then she was scrolling through TikTok and organically a video about her and her book came up in her feed, and it was negative and it was from another author. And she's scrolling through the comments and she's seeing other authors say, I thought this video was about me until you mentioned how many pre-orders there were. And then she says, if you're another author, I don't know why you would say these awful things. And she then says that because of that, she's making the case that because of that video, that is where the negative reviews came from, that they were not organic, that she had positive feedback until that video.
Unfortunately, came across a video of another author talking about me. I felt something change in me that moment. The amount of heart dropping that I felt while watching that video will stick with me forever. And I opened these comments and there's tons of people all going, I was worried about this video was about me until you said these numbers. I just sat there for a little bit and went, how can you say that you were worried that it would be you, and then proceed to turn around and say that about another author? When I saw that video, I closed out the app and I went to my studio space and I said, up until this point, I had very positive reader reception. I was staying aware of what people were saying, and it was way more positive than negative. But when I saw this video and I saw the things that were being said, I knew, and literally within hours, I was getting dozens of comments. Hope that at least shines some light on what this all has done to me and how one person, one video can impact someone.
This is a deviation from all the other updates we got. This, to me, looks like she is positioning it as this is this author's fault. I was getting good feedback until that video. She says one person, one video can change everything. That's not what happened. The readers who pre-ordered your book got the book in the mail, took time to read it. I read faster than most people, but it's probably that they all finished around the same time. And then they started to review it and the feedback was negative. What Audra is positing in this book, in this 16-minute video, is that all the feedback was positive and then an author came and said something negative and suddenly there's a wave of negative reviews.
I also don't believe this story that everything was fine and we were getting good reviews until some author somewhere on TikTok reviewed the book and then there was an influx of negative reviews, because shortly after the book released, which was on June 27th, Audra starts posting what looks to me to be direct responses to the negative reviews that were talking about the way that she writes. Well, let's talk about the narration style. My main character is neurodivergent. She thinks in fragmented sentences. She repeats the same words to process them better. Do you tell stories without repeating small details? Do you always think and speak with perfect grammar? No, and neither should a realistic narrator. It's just sort of ridiculous to me as somebody who's read the book because, sure, it's in first person past tense. However, all of the characters to some degree speak like this. I don't think that's a stylistic choice. I think that another book I was reading at the exact same time, Push by Sapphire, which looks like this, or a stylistic choice, much to my chagrin. I can reference here James Frey, who doesn't use any punctuation, he doesn't use any quotation marks, rather. Those are stylistic choices, but it seems to me that words are simply just used wrong, and that's not because the character doesn't know what words mean, because all of the characters are using words wrong. That speaks to me to be about more of the writer rather than a intentional choice made by the narrative. And if the reader doesn't pick up on that and has to be told that, then something has gone wrong. And I doubt that these editors that she references with 30 plus years experience neglected to tell her that if they were working on what she called a perfect introduction to her world. I'm going to talk about this piece more when I actually review the book, but I think a really good example of how this is not a stylistic choice, but simply the author's way of speaking coming through is when she annotated her own book, and her annotations have words that aren't quite right, similar to how the book is written, and a lot of it is just very heavy-handed, telling you how to feel about the book and what to think about the book rather than annotations. And I think that is something to look at. That's how the book itself comes across. That's how the writing itself comes across. Very heavy-handed, misused words, kind of wondering what the hell is going on here. That's the experience I had reading the book and reading her annotations of her own book.
It's an attempt to delegitimize the negative reviews in a way that I find gross. I think that that's gross. And I have seen this before where authors try to delegitimize negative reviews directly to their audience on their TikTok or their Instagram in order to make themselves feel better. I think that it's also part of trying to control the narrative and control audience perception, so that if that comes up in the audience's feed, they are already being told what to think, feel, and say about that. The book did not get negative reviews because some author decided to talk shit. I don't even know what video you're talking about. I have read this book, and on a line level, it is poor. It is poorly done. And so it's very odd that in the comments of this very video is where she talks about not editing it. So which is it? Did you edit it like you said in June? Or did you not edit it like you're saying now? Is it the fault of this author who decided to talk about you? Or is it your fault for not creating a quality product like you say in the comments?
The most recent update as of August 11th is, can you explain what went wrong with the first edition of Age of Scorpius? I spent a lot of time reflecting on this question in the past 2 weeks. My developmental editor said the plot was ready, but recommended a strong copy edit before publication. Even though I hired a copy editor and proofers, the final phase of implementing their suggestions overlapped with the deluge of thousands of unexpected book pre-orders. I was suddenly in a frenzy with establishing a business, setting up payroll, packing and shipping thousands of bubble mailers, and adapting to the shock of my entire life being turned upside down in a matter of weeks. In retrospect, I was exhausted and overwhelmed, but I felt immense pressure to deliver to all my new readers. I thought I was putting my best effort into finalizing the copy edits and proofing, but failed to recognize the external factors impacting my overall health and mindset. Unfortunately, I genuinely had no clue that this was a problem until the books were in people's hands. I really do not want this to happen again, and that's why I'm extending the timeline into next spring, so I have time to do this revision properly. Number one, that is not what she said back in May. She said that she worked with professionals to create a perfect introduction to her book. At no point up until now have we heard the idea that something went wrong in the copy edit process. We heard that the narration style was a choice. We heard that this was a perfect introduction, that it had been worked on by professionals who had worked on other books that we are familiar with, like The Hunger Games. And now, after the backlash and after being told that her immediate response to the backlash was not appropriate, now we're hearing, well, I didn't properly put time into my copy edits. And I think the people that she responded to like this, saying, it's a perfect introduction, deserve an apology. I also am really now more than ever confused about the timeline of all this. When did you hear from the developmental editor that it needed a stronger copy pass? When did all of this happen? What's the timeline of events? I also have to go back to the beginning of this where it says, my developmental editor said the plot was ready. As the reader, I don't see how that's possible, and I don't think that the majority of readers would agree with that. I don't see how that's possible. The plot pacing itself, like other pieces alone, the plot pacing itself does not make any sense. As a story, it makes no sense to structure it like this. And I can't understand why a developmental editor would say it was good to go. And I would like to actually hear from the developmental editor so I can understand their thought process, because as the reader, I deeply disagree. Also on August 11th, she posted a video where she's talking about her revision process. She talks again about collaborating with her artists, and she talks about hiring an in-house copy editor. I don't really understand who is in-house that can do such a job, but what is missing from this is mentioning a developmental editor, which means that she really believes the developmental editor when they allegedly said that it's good to go, and she simply needs to do copy edits. I'm having a really hard time wrapping my head around this as a person who read the book. I just simply don't believe that any developmental editor worth their salt actually said that it was good to go. And unfortunately, Audra does believe that. And now I guess in no part of this 8 step revision process, will there be a developmental edit, which I think is a grave error, and it will result in the reviews looking similar to how they currently look. Maybe on a line level, we will feel like the book is better written. Maybe it'll lend itself to better characters, but the plot itself is I don't even know how to express to you how lacking in plot the book actually is. So I don't understand how we can get past doing another developmental edit.
The other thing I want to mention here, you're not technically supposed to sell pre-orders on TikTok. What Audra is doing is selling bookmarks and then sending the pre-orders after the fact to get around that rule on TikTok. I don't think that you should do that. I don't think that you should hinge your business, because what's happening is she's making the majority of the income of the $24. If you buy it off TikTok Shop, she makes $22. On Amazon, she probably makes less than that. I would caution, I understand that that's really compelling to be able to make $22 out of $24. I would caution against selling a bookmark when you're really selling a pre-order and then pocketing the majority of the money. I just feel like you just don't do that. That seems like a risky business decision. You might piss off TikTok. I wouldn't do that.
PSA for readers. If a seller marks your pre-order as fulfilled after mailing you a 50-cent bookmark, but the actual book won't ship for 7 months, that's not just sketchy. It can be fraud. Platforms require the actual product to ship before funds are released. Bookmarks are not the actual book. Report it before your buyer protection expires. Let's talk about a shady little loophole some sellers are using on TikTok Shop to cash out on your money, months before you ever get what you paid for.
Again, I think all of this is a very interesting is a choice word for this, a very interesting case study. Similarly, I brought up this earlier, actually, another case study in hype versus reality is the Lightlark situation. The platform's algorithm loves an aesthetic on TikTok. On TikTok, if you have a good aesthetic that they think will cause you to sell a book, they're going to push that into the feeds of a very particular group of people. And it's often a bunch of images and words, and it's about a young woman's excitement, and then maybe an excerpt or a line or two, or maybe none, before the book has even come out. And suddenly, now we have a whole book that people are excited about, only to be met with scathing reviews from early readers who call it sloppy. Social media marketing and authors' skill and luck in social media marketing can secure commercial opportunities that then the quality of the product just don't justify. But unfortunately, publishers don't care about that. They care about, hey, can we make a buck? Can we make a lot of bucks? So they're going to see, oh, good, something that sells, not something that's quality, and this further changes publishing for the worse. I think this does serve as a cautionary tale for authors. Do you want to create a reader base that might be kind of smaller around a quality product, or do you want to create something that sells and sells quickly? This also created a lot of anxiety in the indie author space, who says that this is going to further the narrative that indie authors write books that are just always bad. It also opened the conversation to, who do you get feedback from? How do you make sure that you're not in an echo chamber? Because I think that if there was any feedback given on Age of Scorpius, it was given in an echo chamber. It doesn't seem to me, from what I have seen on TikTok, it doesn't seem to me that Audra Winter is a person who is very open to feedback and making changes. If you want to create a quality product, you do have to get people who, I think the best person to get is somebody who doesn't know you at all. If you're a first-time author, I mean, like, build a relationship with a good editor, but I think that you should have, I don't know how many times I can say that, like, the book should have been edited. I can't beat this dead horse anymore. I also think that we need to think about the blurring of the lines between authors and readers. I think that this is yet another case where I'm seeing readers staunchly defend a person, even if the book is bad, and consumers deserve quality books for, the price that they're paying of $20, $25, $30. Do I think that she should have been bullied in her comments? Definitely not. I don't think that any reviews should have been left in her comments. I don't understand why I'm getting comments like this, because I'm not even talking to her. I'm talking about this because I care about consumers and quality books, and I care about authors. But I think that in order to make better quality books, because I'm seeing a lot of low quality books lately, And a lot of that is the fault of traditional publishing wanting to make a buck. Like, I'm not putting this all on indie authors. We have to decide as consumers that we want better products and vocalize that. And I think that that is a lot of what's going on here. And that vocalization is being met with like ire. I do not think that Audra Winter was not aware of the expectations that readers had of this book. Again, going back to her defense of the book using other people and editing that now she admits didn't happen. But I think she somehow thought that a compelling personal narrative and a marketable premise would carry her through without having to actually make a quality product. I don't ever want to see this happen in publishing again. This is a betrayal for readers. It scares other indie authors, and all it tells big publishing that has the money to do shit like this is that they should do shit like this and they shouldn't. What I would do is prioritize product over platform. The most critical investment is not your marketing. The most critical investment is yourself and your quality, the quality of your work. If you don't have quality work, then it doesn't matter if you make a bunch of big sales one time. You're never going to make them again because you have broken reader trust. You have not established a reader base that trusts you. You have to budget for and submit multiple rounds of professional developmental line copy editing before publication. The other recommendation is seek out critical feedback. Get beta readers who don't care about your feelings. They care about making a quality book. Relying on your own community that you've built yourself is going to create an echo chamber. Prepare yourself for that negative feedback before you get it. Understand that your book's reviews are not a review of yourself. You might love your book as a baby, but your book is not your literal baby. Your book is a work of art, is a consumer product as soon as you start to sell it, and you are going to want to do your best to ensure that you have done right by the consumers. And that's why I think it's so disingenuous when she says in that 16-minute long video, well, I did everything I could. And then in the comments, you admit that you did not do everything you could. You dropped the ball on line editing because you were so busy doing the business aspects of all of this. Regarding marketers and publishers, publishers need to start investing back in their editors. Publishers are not paying editors enough. They're not giving a shit about editing enough. They care about sprayed edges now and marketability, and that is it. And that is why you are losing so much reader trust. I understand that it sounds really good to just be like, well, I'll find an author with a really big platform and therefore together we can sell endless books. You need to make sure that the quality of the work justifies your investment, not the amount of subscribers somebody has. Impressive engagement metrics are not a substitute for a professional work that meets reader standards. Ground your marketing in reality. You need to understand reader expectations and meet them. Don't overhype what you know is not a quality product. Don't legitimize a product that you know is going to fall short of reader expectation. You are going to reputationally damage yourself in the long term if you keep doing this. Like, there are entire pockets of readers who are writing off publishers and imprints of publishers because they are making AI covers and they are creating books that don't seem to have been looked at much by an editor. And everybody in publishing needs to get PR people and a group chat. When you have a crisis, don't respond during the crisis, and definitely don't respond angrily. Say, hey, I am absorbing your feedback and I will be back with a response as soon as possible. If you are looking at your reviews, look at all of them and see if even the 4 and 5 stars that you are like, oh, 5 stars, that makes me feel better. See if those reviews, I don't think you should look at your reviews, but if you are, see if maybe the negative reviews and the positive reviews have similar keywords. Like, even the positive reviews might say, it was good, but I think that the pacing is pretty rough. If that's being said in both your negative and your positive reviews, maybe take that feedback. If you are a publisher or you work in publishing or you work as an author's PA, maybe take that and give that feedback to your author so that they can, in the next book, not have that happen. Don't blanketly dismiss criticism or try to pass it off as if it's the reader problem. I think that this is going to serve as a lasting reminder that while marketing can secure sales in the first place, only quality secures a career. And this is simply not quality. I will be back with another video to review this in full. God help me. But that is what happened with Audra Winter and Age of Scorpius. Comments and questions can go down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, there's a wolf on the back, and the wolf masks or thing that pop up in this book. You know, the sun-bleached one that was paling. It was actively degrading as she was looking at it. So leave a wolf emoji down below if you made it this far. We will be back to talk about Age of Scorpius' innards in another video. Thank you so much for watching. Comments and questions go down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hi, before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Beck, Call Me Kodiak, Chocos, Homesick for Taiwan, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Eric D, Jade, Jill, John E, Jory, Julie, Kai Brecker has not read Six of Crows, Kalain OK, Katya, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips Loves Pride, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Other Lex, Lily, Maddie Miss, Megwin Rose, Melissa, Mixer Boneless, Not So Secretly a Skeleton, Peggy Lou Who, Piloting SRN, Rain, Ree, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Steph B, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Urchin Audrey, and White Raven 13. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. Huge thank you to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons, Aaron, Alejandra, Alicia, Bobisha, Banana, Fofana, Fofisha. What are we doing, Alicia? Althea, Amanda D, Andy, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Barry, Baywing, Beck, Blue Moon Syrup, Bookish by Jenna, Bookish Rabbit, Bridget 108, Kate B, Caitlin, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate, Kathy, Celeste, Che, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic Frog, Courtney, Darius, Danielle, Danita, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorothea Supports Public Education, Draco-chan, Drive-By Thinker, Ebby, Emma, Aaron with 2 E's, Erica May, Aaron Starlight, Fox Waifu, Francis, Gadarn, Hannah C, Helen P, Hurry Singh, JM Tennant, Jackalope Max, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jesse Ives, Jessa Sue, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Caitlin M, Katie L, Katrina, Kayla, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, Kiara, KMTV, Kayana, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura is Angry, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Lindsay M, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Mataraptor, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Megan, Malara, Mima Who, Morgan the Friendly Ghost, Myth Lesbian, NM Rap, Natural Blues, Nicole G, Paige P, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pick a God and Pray, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rach, Rachel B, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Ren Flynn, Rhea, Reese, Ronnie, Rosie, Sikoria, Saintbringer, Sakya Lume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Sophie, Talia, That One Cute Chick, This Is Not a Trap, Too Thick to Work Tomorrow, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, and Unicorn Jenny. Thank you all so much for being a friend.